This morning's Bible reading is Proverbs chapter 4, which you can find on page 638 of the Church Bibles. Proverbs chapter 4. Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching. For I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. Then he taught me, and he said to me, take hold of my words with all your heart. Keep my commands, and you will live. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. Cherish her, and she will exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. She will give you a garland to grace your head and present you with a glorious crown. Listen, my son, accept what I say, and the years of your life will be many. I instruct you in the way of wisdom and lead you along straight paths. When you walk, your steps will not be hampered. When you run, you will not stumble. Hold on to instruction. Do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life. Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way. For they cannot rest until they do evil. They are robbed of sleep until they make somebody stumble. They eat the bread of wickedness, and they drink the wine of violence. The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. But the way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. My son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them, and health to one's whole body. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil.
Thank you very much, Mark, for that reading from the Bible. We're going to be focusing on that passage now for a little while. My name's John Risbridger, one of the ministers here. Great to see you this morning. Early on Thursday morning, I was up in Marlon, sat in Costa, having a coffee with a guy I've got to know. A few weeks ago, I'd spoken at the Thanksgiving service of his father, known to many of us as Tompi Wright. And his son Andy and I had struck up a conversation afterwards, and it was one of those conversations that felt significant, but it felt like we didn't have time to finish it, and so we'd arranged to meet up again. Well, if you knew Tompi, his life passion was making disciples of Jesus followers who would follow Jesus in all of their lives. And that's become Andy's passion as well. And he began to share some of his vision for how he was working that out as a pastor in Basingstoke. He said, do you know, it's great doing Alpha in homes. Yeah, I'm talking about Alpha again. Where you get, 10 people around a telly and you have great, it's great, he said. It's really good. And I was thinking, yeah, it's great doing Alpha in homes. I love that. It's the highlight of my week. But he said, but God has challenged me to aim higher in disciple making. He said, we're a church of 200 to 300 people, so why is it okay for us just to have 10 people on our Alpha course? So he said, we're doing Alpha 100 this term, aiming to bring 100 people to Alpha. We got 63 on our first go because we've made it our goal and we're working together for it. And it's just amazing to see what God is doing. Well, I have to say, I felt inspired and challenged by God all at once in that conversation. I'm still trying to figure out what it means for us because we're a larger church than that. But honestly, what a vision to pass on. What an opportunity to have my sights raised and see what God could do. Here's my question for each of us this morning. What is the life vision I'm passing on? Because actually we are passing on vision all the time. What is the vision that my life is all about? And what is the vision that your life is all about? And what's the vision I'm passing on, perhaps especially to those who are closest to me? Your family, your immediate friends, your kids if you have them. Say, John, please, Sunday morning, get real. We are not all pastors. We are not all leaders. I'm just getting on with my life and I'm not passing on a vision to anybody. Feel like that? Maybe you don't feel anything, but perhaps we do feel like that. But I want to say, I don't think life works quite like that. See, everyone has an influence, and every life leaves a legacy. It may be a legacy of sadness, pain, and bitterness from a selfish and self-absorbed life, but it's still a legacy and an influence. Or it may be a legacy of love and inspiration and joy from a life lived with generosity, energy, and kindness. But that's a legacy too. Every life leaves a legacy. The question is what yours and mine will be. What vision of life are we passing on by the words we say, the choices we make, the actions that we take? That is really, in many senses, what the book of Proverbs is about. Passing on a vision for life, real life, life with God at its center. And much of it is expressed in terms of a parent passing on a vision for life to their child. So have a look at Proverbs 1, 8 and 9. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. They are a garland to grace your neck, your head, and a chain to adorn your neck. So though this whole topic of the vision we pass on is relevant to everyone because every life leaves a legacy, there is going to be a bit of a focus this morning on parents and parenting, but it is relevant for us all, as we'll see. And there's a clear assumption in these verses that parents are responsible to instruct and teach their kids. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. That's just the assumption that is here. And it's an assumption that it is both for fathers and for mothers. None of us can opt out of this solemn responsibility, this wonderful responsibility. Schools, teachers, GSMA, church workers, they have a key role which we should honor and embrace. But we can't contract it all out to other people. This is an instruction to fathers to instruct and to mothers to teach. We can't opt out. And as the idea is developed in chapter 2 that we looked at last week, it's clear that our role is not only to pass on good ideas, but to pass on God's ideas. Chapter 2, my son, we're still talking the same thing. If you accept my words and store up my commands within you, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. There's a challenge for our parenting, for those of us that are parents, isn't it? If our kids listen to us, will they, through listening to us, understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God? Because, verse 6, the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Not just passing on good ideas, but passing on God's ideas. So, forgive me, but this morning I want to look the dads here in the eye and ask, are you taking seriously the influence that you are having on your kids? Whatever age they may not still live at home, but are you taking seriously the influence that you have on them? Because you'll have an influence on them whether you like it or not. It's just the way that human life works. It might be an influence that says that the way to live life is to pursue your own selfish ends and do your own thing. Or it might be an influence that helps your kids know God and walk in his ways. There will be an influence. What is it? That's the challenge, dads. And you can't just leave this to someone else, not even to their mother. But I also want to look the mums here in the eye. And indeed, the godmothers and the godfathers as well. And ask the same question. What are your kids picking up from you about what is most important in life? Not just by your words, but by your choices and your actions. Are they seeing that what really matters to you is that they have the opportunity to know God through Jesus Christ and learn to walk in his ways? Is that what they see wherever they cut you, as it were? That's the passion of your life. And for the amazing single parents here, often battling with so many demands and pressures, we stand with you as friends in all the pressure. But for you too, the challenge in the middle of everything is keep your eye on the ball of what matters most. And don't have your agenda set by the expectations that society puts on you. Keep your eye on the ball. None of us can opt out because every life leaves a legacy. The question is, what will ours be? And so let's go to chapter 4, where, as far as I can see, there are three things that stand out for me. They are addressed in this chapter to fathers, but we've already seen from chapter 1, verse 8, they're equally important to mothers. So I'm saying fathers stroke parents, okay? And here's the first one: the father or the parent who aspires for their kids or for those that they're influencing. Chapter 4, verse 1, listen, my son, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain instruction. Now, I know that it's kind of the lot of every parent saying, why don't you listen to me? Pay attention. But I want you to hear the heart of this guy, okay, of this father. What does he want for his son? He's wanting them to listen. He's wanting them to pay attention because it's important. This father has aspirations for his child. My daughter Nicola started a new job about a year ago. Actually, started another one since, but that's a detail you don't need to know about. And on the first day, the boss sat her down and said, Nicola, tell me, what do you want to learn and how do you want to develop in this role? Because we want to invest in you. He aspired for her, and she thrived in that role. Now, I know the boundary between healthy aspiration and unhealthy pressure is sometimes difficult to draw, but that old adage is generally true, isn't it? That if you aim at nothing, you'll hit at it every time. And it's true in our legacy leaving, in our parenting, in the influence that we have. Aim for nothing and you'll achieve it. But that's not exactly aspiration, is it? Here is a father with aspirations for his sons. Listen, he says, this is important. But friends, what do we aspire for those entrusted to us? Just to keep on top in school, in sport, in music, in body image, or whatever it is that matters to you? Just to get every gadget and every experience that they desire? Look, there's something bigger to aspire to. This father wants to pass on a whole vision of life to his sons. Verse 2, I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching. And really the rest of Proverbs is that worked out. Sound learning, a life vision for his son, because he aspires for his son. He wants to prepare his son for work, for temptation, for relationships, for pleasure, for sex, for conflict, for choices, for riches, for poverty, for life, all of life. And in particular, for life with God at its heart, because that is real life. Proverbs 9, verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. What do you aspire for those entrusted to you, those you influence, those nearest to you, including for your kids if you have them? Do you aspire, or are you too absorbed in yourself and your own agenda to really care? But if you do aspire, and I'm sure many of us do, are we aspiring too low with mere success when you could be passing on the ultimate vision of life to those that you're influencing? The life that the Lord Jesus makes possible. Life in relationship with God. The father who aspires Second, the father or the parent who learns. Years ago, I was talking to an American pastor in Cincinnati. We had about an hour to talk together. It was a very large church. And he just looked at me in the eye. I was in my mid-40s at the time, so it was quite a long time ago, unfortunately. And he said to me, John, the sad thing is that most people give up learning in their mid-40s. Most people give up learning in their mid-40s. Just coast to the grave. It was so depressing to hear. And I remember resolving in my heart there and then that I never want to stop learning and growing and changing. I never want to stop learning and growing and changing. See, the best people to learn from are people who are learning themselves. Because once we stop learning, we start dying. So as this father appeals to his son because he wants to teach him, he explains that he was himself first a learner. Verse 3, for I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. Then he taught me. And then he's going to pass on those lessons. Friends, if we want our kids to honor and learn from us, frankly, we need to make sure that we are honoring our own parents and learning from them to the extent that that is possible in our lives. And I know that's complicated for some of us. Actually, for those of us for whom that is particularly complicated, it's worth knowing that in Hebrew thinking, you can be a son or a child to someone who isn't your biological parent or father. It's about who you learn from. It's about who you honor. It's about who you follow. They are a parent to you because you are a learner to them. So even when it isn't really possible to express honor of a biological parent, and I know sometimes it isn't, it is still vital to model being humble learners first before we open our mouths to be teachers. And of course, supremely, that means being learners from God, because Proverbs 2 verse 6, the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. So what is it that this father had learned from the grandfather? A couple of things stand out. The grandfather had tried to win the father's heart and not just control his behavior. Verse 4, he taught me and said to me, take hold of my words with all your heart. Keep my commands and you will live. We will never develop mature kids if we simply try and control behavior. The goal is to win the hearts of those that we influence. And that means not just telling people what to do, it means relationship, hanging around, having fun, listening as well as speaking, helping, modeling, caring, to win the person, not just to win the battle of the day. And then the grandfather taught that wisdom protects us and honors us. Verse 6, do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. Of course, a child doesn't always want to listen when they're crawling towards the jumping bright flames of a fire, and you say, stop, come back. But you still call because you want to protect them. And in the same way, sometimes people are not very receptive to the wisdom of God. But because of our conviction that that wisdom will protect them, we still will share the wisdom. But it doesn't only protect them, it honors and lifts them up. Verse 8, cherish her, cherish wisdom, and she will exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. She will give you a garland of grace, a garland to grace your head and present you with a glorious crown. Now, of course, this doesn't guarantee health and wealth and surface happiness. But the point is that God's wisdom is the best way to live because it's God's way. And it protects us and it honors and dignifies our lives. And so the grandfather boldly and with conviction sets out the choice. Verse 7, the beginning of wisdom is this, get wisdom. And you kind of think that's a bit odd, that's a bit circular, but he's basically saying, look, you only get wisdom if you really want it. And the father had showed that he wanted it by being a learner, first of all. The father who aspires, the father who learns, and then thirdly, the father or the parent who teaches. So we get to verse 10, and the teaching begins. Listen, my son, accept what I say, and the years of your life will be many. It isn't an assumption of a perfect and trouble-free life. It isn't that. But it's saying this will be good for you if you take it on board. But hang on. Is it good for them? We need to pause here, don't we? Because this is a massive issue in our society. Is it good for parents to teach their kids about God? Is it good? Because it's a big question. Richard Dawkins was once asked about child abuse in the Catholic Church in Ireland, and here's his response. I replied that horrible as sexual abuse no doubt was, the damage was arguably less than the long-term psychological damage inflicted by bringing the child up Catholic in the first place. Now, I think actually, to be fair, even Dawkins recognizes that that was a little bit overstated. But before we just push it away, let's recognize he does articulate a widespread fear, and I think it's infected some of us, that teaching children about God and his ways is brainwashing and may even be abusive. How do we respond? Is Dawkins right? There's lots that could be said, but 3 quick things. There is no such thing as neutral parenting. This is the great lie of secularism. Do it our way, and you're just being neutral and fair-minded. There's no such thing as neutral parenting. Secularism is not neutral. It is a belief that truth is best found without reference to God. Materialism is not neutral. It is a belief that stuff is all there is, and that matter is all that matters. There's no such thing as neutral parenting. Don't buy the lie. Number 2, integrity demands that the parents who believe in God need to be both honest in passing on those beliefs and their implications to their children, and also honest about the fact that those beliefs are not shared by everyone, and that therefore there is a choice that we all need to make. It isn't about brainwashing. It's about being honest about your own convictions and honest about the fact that others have different convictions and that they will therefore in time have their own choices to make. And I think it's important that as parents we welcome questions and we talk things through. And when we're struggling, we get other people involved to help talk them through. None of us has got all the answers, but together we can help our kids on their journey. But then, thirdly, we need to hold our nerve. We need to hold on to what we've just seen from Proverbs, that teaching children about knowing God and walking in his ways will protect them and will enrich and dignify their lives. So don't give up. Don't buy into the lie of secularism. Aim high for your kids and make it your first ambition that they will know God and walk in his ways. Because nothing else is more important than that. The parent who teaches. What does he teach? Well, he gives him a way to follow, verses 10 to 13. Just read verse 11. I instruct you in the way of wisdom and lead you along straight paths. That's intrigued me this last few weeks. It seems to me this idea of straight paths. We've seen the last few weeks lots of examples of politicians having to kind of perform all kinds of somersaults to wriggle out of unwise choices that they have made. I'm not mentioning any names because I don't have to. But the way of wisdom is straight. It has integrity. It isn't trying to cover up. It doesn't leave endless routes to stumble on, endless twists and turns to navigate, to leave behind the past. The way of wisdom is straight. And so, verse 13, hold on to instruction. Don't let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life. A way to follow. And then a way to avoid, verses 14 to 17. We'll read from verse 14. Do not set your foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way. Sorry, I think I've read that wrong. My eyesight is playing me up. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way. But it isn't just a command to obey. There's a reason. That once you step into evil, It grips your heart and controls your life. You become an addict. Verse 16, they cannot rest until they do evil. They are robbed of sleep until they make someone stumble. They eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. There's the warning. Go down that path, this path I'm telling you to avoid, and slowly, slowly, it'll wrap its tentacles around you and grip you until you're no longer satisfied, until you're causing trouble. That's the point. A way to avoid. Verses 18 and 19, he summarizes these two ways. One, a journey to ever-increasing light. The other, a journey to ever-increasing darkness. But then he outlines for us the key signposts on the way of wisdom, verses 20 to 27. And it's incredibly practical and incredibly comprehensive. It's about our hearts, which is our motivation, verse 23. It's about our tongues, our words, verse 24. It's about our eyes, where we pay attention, verse 25. It's about our feet, the actions that we take, verses 26 and 27. This is the way of wisdom, guarding all of these key aspects of our lives. Nurture a heart in the grip of the goodness of God, and it will overflow in goodness in your life. Verse 23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. So nurture a heart gripped by the goodness of God. But let that heart become twisted by selfishness, and it will overflow in anger, ugliness, and greed. Shape your words by God's truth and faithfulness, and you won't have to try and lie your way out of difficulty all the time. Let your words become infected by perversity and corruption, and everything will be a tangle. Verse 24, keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk from your lips. Keep your eyes, your attention fixed on God, on his faithful love, and you'll save yourself and others from so much trouble and destruction. But give in to power play and brutality and greed, and the chances are you'll end up living in a trail of destruction that you brought to yourself and to those near to you. Verse 25, let your eyes look straight ahead, focused on the goal, focused on God. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. And let your actions reflect the faithful love of God by the choices you make. That's in outline is the way of wisdom. It's about our hearts. It's about our tongues. It's about our eyes. It's about our feet. It's about the whole of life. And friends, this is the best vision of life that we can pass on to the next generation. The way of godly wisdom. Hold on nerve. Have courage. Keep going. I know it's tough. I know they don't always want to hear, but it's the best legacy you can ever leave. Now, I know many of us here think, and I think it myself sometimes, I'm just not good enough as a Christian to do that. Maybe I'm not even sure I am a Christian. This isn't for me. But look, every Christian, even if it's day one of their discipleship, can still say, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. Because you're not really pointing to yourself. You're saying, insofar as you see me following Jesus, follow what I do. All you have to be is one step ahead in that journey to be able to influence somebody just a little bit behind you in the journey. You don't have to be perfect in order to be an example. And in fact, you are an example whether you like it or not. Jesus is the true wisdom of God, and to follow him is to live the wise life. And as we do that, we draw those in our influence to follow him too. What might it mean practically for parents here? Well, it does mean watching your example, because they learn more from that than by the words you say. It also means engaging with God with them. That doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. Different families will find different patterns that work. For us, what worked was having shared quiet times with our kids before they went to bed each night. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And at certain points in life, it worked really well. Certain points in life, it didn't work so well. Others do more of a kind of family all-together Bible study. What about doing that once a week? Be possible, wouldn't it? But of course, it's not just about that. It's about engaging with other people as well, other resources, and getting wisdom and input from others. There's a wonderful range of resources here that Jane has given me to kind of wave in front of you. They're all on the bookstall, and you can borrow them from the GSMA library to actually help in this task of how we engage with God together as families. I mean, look. Don't say there's no help, yeah? Just look at them all. There's this wonderful Jesus Storybook Bible. There's what every child should know about prayer. There's some Bible reading notes you can do with them, and some more. There's Bible reading plan for kids. There are 5 things to pray for your kids. There's Peter and Paul's story. Don't know what it's about, but it looks fantastic. There's raising kids in a screen-saturated world, massive issue. There's guidance on parenting. There's the wonderful Beginner's Bible that we use loads with our kids. Lots and lots of resources. Jane, can you just stand up so that people can see? Talk to Jane at the end of this service if you want some help. She has a great passion for this. She would love to help you, and she would love to lend things to you. And if you haven't started, don't worry. Just get started, and she'll be with you as a friend to help you in that. Engage with God together. But it isn't just about those formal things. Talk with them about the issues you face in your life and how God speaks into them. Do life with God in front of your kids. And then crucially, watch what attitude to church you pass on to them. If you want your kids to love the church, but all they ever hear from you is about its faults, it's not going to work, is it? Watch the attitude that you pass on. Share what you've learned with them rather than what frustrated you. Ask them what they are learning. And make a priority of getting them into the stuff that will help them grow, whether that's GSMA or WOW or summer camps. Really, it's great to get kids sometimes away from here onto camps where they'll meet other Christians and be inspired. But friends, it isn't just parents. Everyone influences someone. Every life leaves a legacy. Who will you influence? Who are you investing in? And what will your legacy be? Let's pray together. Father, thank you so much that your word gives us this wonderful vision of life, meaningful life with God at its heart. Thank you that that's what you created us for. And though we walked away from that vision, thank you, Lord Jesus, that you died to bring us back into it, to give us back life in all its fullness. Please help us with passion and diligence and integrity to pass that vision on to the next generation, to our friends, our colleagues, to those who we live among. And help us to do it with deep conviction that your way is the way of wisdom and it is the best way. In Jesus' name, amen.